In today's video, I wanted to go through a bit of a tutorial on how to create a database in SQL Server. So just going through some of the commands here, the basic database create database command is listed here, and all you have to do is give it a name, and it'll use all the defaults as specified in the model database. And we're going to go over model at the end of our discussion here. But if you wanted to, you can actually add a name and a location for the database file and for the log file. So you can say with the name of the database and give it a file name and a path. So this is saying I want to put it on D in the folder MySQL data and name the data file mydatabase.mdf. And then you give it a size and a file growth amount. So in this case, we're going for a gigabyte file size and a growth of 256 megabytes. And then your log, your transaction log here, and the location for that. So you've got a file name. And as you can see, we've got the file name going on D, and it's suggested that you separate your log files physically from your data files. So we're going to the L drive, MySQL log, and then give a name to the file. And typically, log files have a .ldf or a .ndf file extension on them. Then you give it a size and a file growth. And then here what we're doing here is we're assigning the ownership of this database to SA. It's generally suggested that you don't keep the owner of the database to be whoever created it. So you want to assign a user or a login that's going to persist throughout the life of the server, and generally SA is a good choice for that. Then the next command here, we're just assigning the recovery mode. So in this case, we're assigning simple recovery mode, which means that the transaction log will not need to get backed up because it's just going to get dumped. Although you're not going to have the same level of recoverability with simple recovery as you would with full recovery, where you could be able to basically stream your transaction logs and back those up and then recover to any point in time. And then lastly here, we've got setting the compatibility level. So in this case, we're setting the compatibility level, which is basically the version of SQL Server that you want to associate the database with. And we're assigning it to 150, which happens to be SQL Server 2019. And so here's some other interesting options that you might want to use. So these would be like after you created your database, you want to change something, you use the alter database command. And these are some of the different options that you have. So the first one here, we're setting auto shrink off, which means that uh, what you can do is you can assign auto shrink onto your database, which means that if there's free space, SQL Server is going to see that and try and shrink those database files down. Now, sometimes that might be a good idea, generally not, because generally if your database is growing, and maybe you delete some data, so you would have some space available. But over time, in general, most databases are growing. So you don't want to keep shrinking them because you're just basically creating a situation where it's a tug of war. You know, you're going to shrink it and then it's going to grow back, and you're just kind of wasting CPU processing and disk IO access. So that's auto shrink. Next here is auto create statistics. So when you create an object in a database, it'll automatically go and create statistics on it. Sometimes that could be a good idea because then queries against that object can be properly optimized. And here, the next one here is set auto update statistics on. So as you're doing inserts, updates, deletes on your tables and indexes, you probably want to have auto update statistics on so that the optimizer is aware of what's happening. Next option here is read committed snapshot. So read committed snapshot is a sort of an optimistic locking mechanism that's available in SQL Server. And what it does is it writes the before image of your data pages to TempDB so that readers can go in and reference those before you've actually committed your transaction. So you don't have to actually wait for those pages to be available because normally it's locked. So if you have to observe that lock and wait for the commit to happen before or rollback to happen before you could actually read the row, and you just sit there and wait, which you may or may not want. Next option here, we already kind of touched on this, with recovery simple. Here we're setting it to recovery full, which means that our transactions are going to go to the transaction log and they're going to remain there until we back them up. So yeah, if you have recovery full on, you need to have a transaction log backup job in place and running regularly so that your transaction log isn't growing without bound. Next here is set page verify checksum. So it's an integrity check that's being done on pages. And this is just the checksum is just the algorithm that's being used for that verification to be done. And then the last option here is target recovery time 60 seconds. So you're setting the target recovery for SQL Server for this database to be 60 seconds. So that's basically saying you're going to be able to recover your database within the last minute if you have some sort of a crash. I kind of mentioned the model database, and we're going to go into that now. So basically, what you can think of the model databases in SQL Server is a template for future database creation. So you can run all those alter commands that we just went through in the last slide against the model database. And then when you go and create a new database, it's going to take all those options and apply them to your database that you're going to create. Which makes things a lot more consistent going forward. And it's a good idea to use the model database. I think it's something that is kind of not not used as frequently as it should be used, and it really can create consistency in your environment. So the defaults for new databases are taken from the model database, and like I said, you can run alter commands on model to assign the defaults that you want going forward. So that's the model database. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Please, if you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and dump your comments and questions in the area below. Talk to you guys later. Bye.